Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the entire Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you, my friend, are in the right place. This is where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Monica Blackwood. We have a return guest. It's been since October of 2022 since we chatted with Mikelann Valterra, the Seattle money coach. We are welcoming her back today. Mikelann Valterra is an author, speaker, and master money coach who helps women around the world rise above the money fog, transform their relationship with money, and design their ideal life. For 25 years, Mikelann has been a thought leader in financial psychology. She has written, spoken, and been interviewed extensively on powerful, practical ways to reduce money anxiety, and she teaches effective methods for earning, saving, reducing debt, and managing money. Her new book, Rise Above the Money Fog, and that's new since we talked to her last, is now available online. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. Welcome back, Mikelann. We will be right with you. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. You might say we are ubiquitous. Now, before we bring on Mikelann to welcome her back, I'm welcoming back my co-host, Monica Blackwood. Monica, how are you?
Hey, Dan, I'm great. It's beautiful here on this Wednesday in Paulsbo.
It is.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
It is. Summer, I don't know if it's not officially here, but it's not bad out.
No, but it's Viking Fest weekend coming up, and everybody's hoping that the sunshine is going to stay around for the weekend.
Yeah, for those of you listening who don't know what that means, Paulsbo is Norwegian. It's the land of the Vikings, and we have our annual Viking Fest. So I have something that I want to share. It literally just happened, Monica.
Okay,
it literally just happened, and it made me think about you and your business work that you do, and our guest. So as you know, I coach high school golf, and this is more of a sports thing, and I
can go with that.
You can go with that. I just got an email literally 10-15 minutes ago from the athletic director's secretary, who was a little upset because the registrar at the school, who does a magnificent job, got a very kind of mean-spirited email from one of the parents of one of my players, who was upset that they were marked unexcused for yesterday when they were at the district tournament. And this person does a ton of work, and it just got missed. Heck, it could have been my fault. I don't know, but it got missed. Anyway, what the reason I bring it up is because it's completely out of character for this individual. He's been a parent on the team for 3 years. He's very reserved. He's very supportive of his kid and of me. And it shocked me. And I realized, I don't know what it could be, but maybe there's something else in play in his life right now. For whatever reason, I can't believe that this would be a normal response. And so it made me think about business, and you deal with a lot of people in the staffing business and HR. Would you agree that sometimes we have responses from people that shock us, or maybe don't, but it's usually not us. It's usually, or even sometimes a situation, there's something else in play.
Oh my goodness. Email is horrific for an emotional communication tool. I have to say that. And yes, especially if it's something that's uncharacteristic of the individual that you know, sometimes the email can come across a little crass. Other times it's actually me or you or the reader that is reading the crassness into it, and they just don't understand, because it could be on one side or the other from a communication standpoint. I had a situation not long ago, about 4 months ago, where one of my staff members sent out an email, and it was kind of a standard email that we have, but like it started off differently than usual. It didn't have a greeting like it usually does. And this went to the entire team. It didn't have our typical email signature on it. or her email signature on it. And it was just kind of really short and to the point. And the way I took it was like, oh crap, this is something really happened. Like, what is going on with her? And so, and I was not really happy with the way that the email was sent out and thinking that, it was a gripe or whatever. And so I really jumped on and I wanted to be like, hey, what the heck is going on kind of thing. And then I was like, no, Monica, step back, take a breath. And so I did. And I was like, hey, and I did a single reply, not a reply all, single reply back. And I said, the first thing I said was, hey, I just want to make sure you're okay. Because I didn't know what was going on. Was it me that was reading into that? Was that her being really upset about something that might have happened? And I said, this doesn't look like our standard email. Our standard email usually has this component, this component, this component, and this component. I was just curious, is something wrong? So like that was my way to kind of check in and be like, am I reading into it? Is something really going on? We got onto a Teams call because, again, email sucks for emotional conversation. Got onto a Teams call and she was like, I had no idea it came across that way. I am so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And we worked it out. And there was really nothing to the situation at all, other than, for some reason her signature block fell off and she was doing something else and forgot to put a greeting in. Not that a greeting is that big of a deal. It really isn't. Yeah. Most of the time, we don't even have greetings. But anyway, so just putting it out there, it's like, take a breath and be like, I just want to check in first. Before I jump to conclusions, I
got to tell you, Mon, I love that. I think I've learned something. I'm going to do that from now on. In fact, I might even do it with this parent and just say, hey, is everything okay? Because
you might do unusual. It with the athletic secretary and the registrar too, because again, it could have been on anybody's side of reading into it.
Yeah, no, I read it. It wasn't that. Oh, God. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But you're right. You're right. I think that's a great point. Now, that you talked about email and emotions. Well, we know something else that can be emotional. That's money.
Absolutely.
Money can be very emotional. And I know that that happens in my life. And it's easy for me. I feel like the richest guy in the world when I walk into a golf pro shop. I can tell you that. So I know emotions play a factor there. Mikelann Valterra, welcome back. It's been since October of 2022 since we've had you on the show. I'm going to bring you into this conversation. Have you ever seen, and this is about as easy as softball as possible, have you ever seen where emotions cloud the judgment of somebody and then they make decisions that they go back and start scratching their heads? Tell us, first of all, welcome back. Tell us how you've been doing and answer my question, why don't you?
Hello, hello, hello. No, I have never seen that. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. That would be crazy. I love what Monica said. Email is the worst for communicating emotions, as is text, right? I mean, how much of our communication is verbal, which we all know how much is our voice tone, right? But sometimes it's just easier to dash off the email or the text. As a money coach, you can imagine that I spend a lot of time in the emotional side of money. And people are so stressed sometimes around money. And when they are stressed, it affects everything, right? It affects our communication. It affects how we feel about ourselves. Sometimes, again, as a money coach, I deal with a lot of stress, as you can imagine, around money. People aren't even aware that they're under a lot of financial stress. They get used to it, but then their communication comes out as like clipped or very curt. And, people know that there's something wrong, but they don't realize that they're communicating it. And of course, nobody wants to telegraph, hey, guess what, everyone, I'm stressed about money. So we spend a lot of time trying to tamp it down and pretend or hide all of our financial stress. Business owners, as we all know, deal with a lot of financial stress around money. But the more we try to tamp it down and hide it, the more it comes out in all sorts of odd ways. And, and one of them is going to be in those emails, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. I'm curious because you mentioned how people aren't necessarily aware of their stress level when it comes to their finances. And I think about some, how backgrounds tend to compound on things. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking about, what if somebody was raised in a household where finances were tight all the way around, and so they kind of built up, I don't know, a tolerance level of stress, and then they get into their adulthood and finances might be tight, maybe they're not, I don't know. How often do you see those
Mhm.
things translate from their youth into their adulthood? And I realized that I just went
Yeah.
really deep really quickly, but
I was like,
sorry,
whoa, that's a
in my
big ass
head.
question, if I can say that, you know. But yeah, no, but you hit it, right? So much of how we feel about money does come from our childhood. So, the book that I just wrote is called Rise Above the Money Fog. And, one of the big, and we can get into it later, but one of the big questions is, where does money fog come from? Where does financial vagueness come from? And one of the biggest places it comes from is childhood, because we're not taught about money. So that creates a lot of this financial fog as adults, that we're not even aware that we're in a fog. Usually we're not aware of the fog until we're out of it and looking at it. But what Monica brought up takes it even deeper. Sometimes not only are we in a family that doesn't teach us about money, we're in families that are fighting about money, or we're in families that are in a lot of financial stress and deprivation. And some families hide that a little bit better than others, meaning I have clients that they'll say, I never knew we were poor, right? They'll something like that. Their parents just handled money so beautifully that the kids were not aware of a lot of financial pressure. But other people grow up with so much stress they pick up from their parents around money. And sometimes it is literally outright fighting that they hear their parents fighting about, the bills and whatnot. The question is, how does it affect us as adults? And we want to think it doesn't. We think, oh, we're adults. We're just going to learn how to handle money like adults. But that's just not the way it works. It's one of the most emotional subjects on the planet. So as adults, what happens is money comes up and we're just stressed. We're not even certain why we're stressed. We hear people talking about money, or our partner wants to bring up a money conversation, and we just clench and get stressed, and we get fuzzy, and we get that pit in our stomach, right? Some people will start to feel icky when they open up online banking, and the business owner has to go meet their their CPA perhaps, and they just are in a bad mood, right? And a lot of that traces back to our childhood, when we were raised with a lot of, we'll just say, negativity around money. As adults, when the money's conversation comes up, we feel just like we felt when we were back 8 years old and our parents were having a really not pretty conversation about money. So it absolutely affects us.
So, Mikelann, it's interesting. I'm really fascinated by what you're saying. And we've had a guest on before. I don't know if you know Doug Peterson. He does somewhat of the similar type of work on personal spending. One of the things I learned from him was it's not necessarily about the income either. He said he has some people who are you'd be shocked at how much their income is, but because of the way that they spend and their thoughts about, well, I have money, all of a sudden they have money problems, even though their income would be considered as high earners. Can you talk about that?
100%. Yeah, I do know Doug's work, and he's totally right. We think that there's a correlation of, oh, because we weren't raised with money, therefore it causes all sorts of issues, perhaps, but part of it is we feel the way that we feel around money for a lot of reasons. And one of them is how we're raised. One of them is our brain chemistry, our belief systems, right? You can be raised in a family that has a lot of money or a little money, and either way, you can grow up and become an overspender, an underspender, an over earner, someone who can't stop working compulsively, right? An under earner. So that is completely true. The question people often ask is, why do spenders spend, And that's just one subject among many, right? But sometimes people that struggle with spending what they feel like is too much and it generates perhaps credit card debt, or they're too deep into their line of credit, or their spending is causing an issue in their relationship, right? So there's lots of like, what are the signposts of it being a problem? It can come from the fact that they didn't learn the skills. It can sometimes come from childhood where they are now using money to give themselves the attention and the love that they didn't get as a child, right? It can come from brain chemistry, believe it or not. Some people are wired more towards spending than saving because of dopamine levels, right? So people want a single answer, but it's not as simple as were you raised with money or were you not raised with money? Because you can come from a lot of different family backgrounds and it can show up a lot of different ways as an adult.
So you mentioned a couple of things that impact how people spend their money, how they relate with their money, right? Societal, you didn't touch much on that, and just kind of that image aspect. And I know that the image can be a huge motivating factor for people to continue spending. You know, it's the keep up with the Joneses.
I was just going to say,
right?
keep up with the Joneses. Yeah.
Um,
No, you're
have
right,
you
Monica. Yeah.
Have you seen anything in that regard change?
Yeah, it's gotten worse, right?
Oh,
And
dang.
yeah, sorry about that. I mean, and we all know that it is correlated to social media use. There's not, I really doubt I'm saying anything that your listeners have not heard. So a part of it is it used to be keeping up with the Joneses was we saw families on television that didn't have what we had, and that brought up a lot of feelings for different people. Now we're literally exposing ourselves in our social feeds to people that have a lot of whatever that quote we don't have. And you know, one of the recommendations is don't follow people you don't personally know. It's very psychologically unhealthy because you're constantly being exposed to a lot of stuff that is not about you or your life, but we naturally compare ourselves. It's just part of the way the human brain is. We're social creatures. We all know that, right? So you can't almost help but compare yourself to everything that you're looking at and looking at and looking at. And when you see all these things that supposedly people have that you don't, different people react differently. But it's not uncommon to feel like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me that I can't take my kids to Hawaii? Because I just saw Maggie in social media is posting all the pictures on the great family vacation to Hawaii. So maybe I should try to do that with my kids. Am I not a great mom that I'm not doing what I keep seeing other people do? Right. So it's the comparison factor is very hard on people.
Well, I can't believe how fast this first half is going. We have to take a short break to hear from today's Spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Mikelann Valterra, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to find out a little bit more about what she thinks around tango shoes. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. Do you know where great people go to meet great companies? Well, I do. It's West Sound Workforce. For 25 years, West Sound Workforce has been putting people to work, matching their skills and interests with positions employers are looking to fill right here in our own communities. Specializing in temp to hire, and direct hire placement services, West Sound Workforce is there to help job seekers looking to find their next position or their next career step with no cost. Companies partner with West Sound Workforce to augment their recruitment strategies, whether to cover the shift of a vacation employee of their own, having extra hands to make a special project happen, or searching for their next new team member. Visit our website at westsoundworkforce.com or check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And make sure you follow them. You don't follow people you don't know. Follow West Sound Workforce, though.
Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Monica Blackwood, and our guest today is Mikelann Valterra for our next segment, Hot or Not.
And you've been on the hot seat before, Mikelann. We're going to talk about, we're going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, and about, people's emotional thing with money. So I'm going to start out. It's almost a plead the fifth. Hot or not, investing their own money emotionally on Argentinian tango shoes. And how many should you have? How
Well,
many?
I
How
gotta
many
say
socks?
hot. I gotta say hot, and you need a lot of tango shoes as a Argentine tango dancer, right? Yeah, no, I mean, we all have what makes us happy. There's nothing wrong with spending money on what gives you joy. The question is, does it fit? Can you afford your passion? And, as a money coach, I'm always trying to figure out for everybody, well, what's your tango? Like, I know your tango's golf, right? So I want you to have all the golf shoes that makes your heart happy. And you want to do that in a way that also lets you still retire someday and deal with all the other things that you need to do in your life. So it's like, how do we balance our passion? That's how I'd answer that.
I thought you were going to say if the shoe fits. I thought
Yeah,
there was
I
a
know I
chance
should
you were
have.
going to say if the shoe fits. And Monica, I don't actually have a follow-up, but I did want to say that one of the very few times we've had somebody plead the fifth is when we asked how many Argentinian tango shoes she has. Mikelann pled the fifth. So
I did. And I'm still not saying exactly how many. I'm still not saying.
Well, I would actually plead the fifth if you were to just ask me how many shoes I had. Because yeah, that's a secret.
That's
And
the secret.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
the fun thing about tango shoes is I can classify them as technical sporting equipment.
Right? Exactly. And we all know that we've got plenty of technical sporting equipment at my house as well. So I have a question. Tango shoes, that's so fun. And I want to noodle on that because I want to come up with a question about your tango dancing. But I did have a different question in mind for you, and it stems back. I was visiting my mom this last weekend for Mother's Day, and we started talking about her visiting one of her friends, and that led to a conversation down memory lane where this friend a long time ago had told her about the envelope system, right? The money envelope system. And my mom had brought it up and was talking about it. And I got to thinking, wow, okay, is that system still valid? And is it a generational thing? And how would you do that in today's world when we really don't deal with that much cash? Anyway, I don't know if there's really a hot or not question in
No,
that,
I haven't.
other than maybe
Yeah.
is the envelope system still valid?
I have an interesting answer for you. So it is old school, right? That it comes from people literally having paper envelopes, and one was
Right.
labeled groceries and eating out money and clothes. And so what was cool about the envelope system and why some people who remember it miss it is it was so kinesthetic, right? When the envelope's empty, it's empty. And then you have to pull money from another envelope, but there's still how much money in all the envelopes. You're not like somehow adding money into the envelope. It was really hard to go into debt when all your money is in these envelopes, right? So yeah, it is old school, and you're totally right, Monica, how many people could do it with, cash and whatnot. But what I have found is interesting is people love the feeling of that so much that sometimes they try to replicate it with massive amounts of accounts. They'll do like a version of the envelope method, and they'll have like 7 credit cards and 3 checking accounts, and they'll be like, okay, this credit card is eating out, this credit card is dedicated to vacations, this credit card is blah blah blah. And it doesn't work as well. I get why psychologically people are drawn to it, but the problem is it actually generates more money fog because you've got all these places now to look and track, unlike the envelopes in your tidy little wallet. And the other obvious thing is a lot of those quote unquote envelopes are borrowing money. The beautiful thing about the envelope system was if I've got, $8,000 a month in my envelopes, when it's gone, right? It's a guardrail. And that's really what people loved about that type of kind of old fashioned system.
Well, I want to dive into your book. I want this, I think, a good time to talk a little bit more. You've mentioned the book you just did a minute ago, and I want you to do a little commercial. So somebody listening or watching to this, who is this book really written for? What are the benefits that somebody reading your book is going to get from it?
So the book was written for women in midlife. Pretty darn specific, right? Now my son is in the Navy, and he dragged it to all his Navy buddies, and they all loved it and had a really funny reaction. About halfway through, they're like, wait a minute, am I supposed to be a middle-aged woman to read this book? But it is about rising above the money fog, which honestly, men and women are just as likely to suffer from a money fog. I just happen to specialize in working with women, right? The book looks at what is the money fog, which in a nutshell is the feelings we have as a result of feeling vague about our money, not knowing where our money is going, not knowing what we need to earn. But really, it's about when we feel fear, overwhelm, or guilt around our finances. And fear, overwhelm, and guilt is FOG, which is money fog. That's where the word fog comes from. And that, yeah, kind of cool.
That's very
Clever.
clever. I like
What
it.
can I say? And so, it looks at when people are in a money fog, that the core of the book is we don't understand this thing that is on us, this vagueness, and we don't get the impact because we're so deep in the fog. But the impact is that money fog causes things, and people don't understand that it's the money fog causing it. So, for example, money fog causes us to overspend, which can sound really obvious, but money fog also can cause us to under-earn, undersell ourselves because we're not clear how much money we need to make. And how often does this come up for business people where they're in a money fog and they don't know what the business needs to generate or what they need to live on, right? So the book really looks at what is money fog and what does it cause that is really almost invisible to us, including overworking. Some people are wearing the golden handcuffs. They're afraid to leave their high-end job, even though they're super unhappy, because again, they're in a money fog. They don't know how much they really need to earn, and they're afraid to leave. So it absolutely goes into all of that. And it goes into where does the money fog come from, which is childhood. And so it kind of dives into different family types so that people can identify for them what type of family did they come from that caused the money fog.
So, question. I'm in HR, and I'm often talking to people when we're offering jobs to people. We're often trying to educate them on, okay, you've got your hourly rate, you've got your salary, whatever it is, and you've got XYZ benefits, and those cost the employer, some bucket of money, and that on top of your hourly rate then is really how much you're earning, right? You kind of add all of that stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Does your book or does your coaching address those kinds of things so that people can understand, hey, my time is valuable and it means that it's this much an hour, and take those things into account, the retirement money and the match that you get and all of that? Do those things come into account when you're coaching or when we're reading your book?
Yeah, absolutely they do. More so in coaching, because that's a lot that you went into, and the book's only 100 pages. So it's like, it's a sit down and enjoy a 2 or 3 hour read with a cup of coffee, but I love everything that you're saying, because absolutely, I mean, that money coaches deal with that all the time. Sometimes it's helping people understand how much they need to earn when they make the move from working a salaried position into being self-employed, because they have to now come up with their own benefits, for example, and they don't know how to, like my next book coming out is How to Set and Raise Your Rates, right? It was very much around, self-employment. But the other huge benefit that's in there is a lot of companies are helping fund your retirement, which is so beautiful. And I don't want to ignore that. You make more money than you realize you're making, is partly what you're saying, because we're thinking about just the net that we get to spend. the flip side of that, Monica, is that a lot of people think they're making more money than they are. They hear their salary, right? But you only get to spend what you get to keep. And so, how do we pull all of this apart? And part of it is working with people to create what I would call a real nourishing spending plan so that people can see the money coming in, including all those sources you just said, and then where do I want to spend my money? Because ultimately, this is about living in balance around your income and your outgo.
I want to sneak this question in before we head to plead the fifth. One of the interesting things in your bio, when I read it for the first time, maybe the second time, maybe it's the same as before, but you called yourself a financial psychologist. And when I think of people who are in the financial business, and this is not anything against them, there's a lot of logic that I hear. Well, you should put the money, whether it's putting the money in the envelope or pay yourself first, or everything that they're saying is correct. You come at it more from a psychological standpoint in really saying that this is more about emotion. Everybody gets the logic part, but it's more about emotions. Does that differentiate yourself, other than you specialize with women, middle-aged women? Does that differentiate yourself from maybe some of the other people who are maybe considered more like financial advisors?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, first of all, I don't do investments. I refer to financial planners for investments. I'm not a broker and all of that. I do a lot of financial education and build net worth for sure with all my clients. But what you just brought up is huge. Half of money coaching is practical, half is emotional. The practical side is, yes, let's learn how to manage our cash flow. Let's put together that spending plan that we were just talking about. But because money is so emotional, we have to look at, what are your beliefs around money? What's your mindset is the most popular way that people talk about it nowadays. But, what's your programming, which oftentimes comes out of childhood. And part of the reason it's so important, Dan, is if we do not understand what I would term our money personality, it doesn't matter. You can get great advice. It's not going to work. You're not going to follow it, or you'll follow it for a while. And then you'll kind of go back to however you used to do money. And it's partly why, 90% of people cannot read a do-it-yourself book around personal finance. Because if it was that easy, and if it wasn't emotional, then yeah, we'd all go read a book and we wouldn't even be having this conversation, right? But there are very, very few things that are as primal as money, because this is a core survival issue. And so it's to pretend it's not emotional, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't help anyone. And, and I think where some of your listeners are most familiar with the emotional side of money is a lot of the stuff that's come out around investor psychology, right? We often invest in ways that are not what the experts say we should do. And that is very, emotionally, psychologically laden. But all of our relationship to money is.
Well, our relationship to money is we got to pay the bills, and we've got some corporate sponsors here that we want to thank. And we're going to take our second break to hear from those sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Mikelann Valterra, I'm gonna find out when you do what the first question is, because I'm going to throw that to Monica. So Monica's going to have that ready for you. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, and Port Ludlow Resort. Please visit our website, shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm co-host Monica Blackwood. Our guest today is Mikelann Valterra. For our next segment, Plead the Fifth. And Mikelann, are you ready for Plead the Fifth?
I'm ready.
I promise I will not ask you how many tango shoes you have.
I already pled the fifth.
I think we should get that out. I think we should get that out of the way. We get to plead the fifth out of the way.
Right?
Do it again.
My first ever Plead the Fifth person on this podcast. But anyway, I do have a question kind of about tango dancing though. What advice would you give to a beginning tango dancer? Would it be dancing advice? Would it be financial advice? Would it be the type of technical sporting equipment, shoes? What would that advice be?
Oh, I love that someone is finally asking me this question. You know, I'm going to go out in a way that might surprise you. What tango is hard, and a lot of things are hard. And what I find is adults are so used to being good at what they do that it is so healthy as an adult to have to learn a new skill. And tango, just like if I picked up golf in my, in my 40s, which is when I started dancing, it was really, really awkward to be awkward and bad at something. I mean, I was 46 when I started dancing tango. I wasn't used to sucking at something, or sorry, but I just was like, I was like, hey, I'm an accomplished professional. So it's so good for people to pick up a hobby that lets them be in that learning place. And the other thing I'd add is everybody says the same thing. I could never dance. I have two left feet, right? But anyone can learn how to dance. Tango starts off fairly cerebral, and anybody can go to dance classes and learn and memorize beginning steps. The dancing and the feeling comes. I am shocked that more men don't dance, because men love women. They love ways to meet women. How they haven't figured out that all they got to do is join a dance class to have all the women friends they could ever want is beyond me. Men are pretty smart, but they don't fully know about the dancing thing yet. Seattle, they know, because it's about 50-50.
Yeah, I was just gonna come back and say, that advice of continually learning and learn new things when you're an adult. I think about my kids, and they're in their late teens, and they're always like, I've got to be really great at this. And I keep saying, you know what? You've got a whole lifetime to keep working at that, and get great at whatever that skill or thing is. But somewhere along the way, like through college and when we get into our professional life, I think you're right. I think we totally drop that idea, or just the curiosity to want to learn something.
Well, it's the book that just came out on grit. Grit is about passion and perseverance, and we need to keep learning how to be passionate and perseverant, if that's even the right word, about learning new skills. It's such a great thing.
Yeah.
So you mean, Mikelann, when in junior high, when the boys all thought we were just kind of cool at the junior high dances, trying to look cool off in the corner, it would have been much smarter to have gone and danced, right?
Would have been much smarter.
Much smarter, yeah. Okay,
much smarter.
That's where my mind literally just went to. So
yeah.
I it's interesting. Somebody listening or watching, you say, boy, she's got it all together with money. She's got it down. She's got it figured out, all of that. I got to believe that it's somewhere along the line you had to work on these yourself. What was or maybe is your biggest challenge in dealing with your own money?
No, absolutely. Yeah. You don't want to work with someone on anything that has no identification with the issue. Like, oh, I can't imagine being stressed about money. That would just be weird. That would just be weird, right? I mean, I'd say two things. I went into money coaching because I came out of graduate school. I had my undergrad in economics, my master's in psychology. And I was like, I'm stressed about money. Right. why don't I have this figured out? I'm this professional woman. I'm carrying debt. I'm not making enough. I think everyone else must have it figured out, So I was like, I need help. Someone else must know how to teach me about the real world of money, not these books on, investing. And plus, buying and reading books on retiring when you're in your 20s isn't really like, it's like I needed to be able to know I had enough money to go out or start a family or things like that. I think that the other thing I'd bring up, Dan, is, I was 39 just right before my 40th birthday when I went through a huge divorce, and nothing knocks you through drags you through a knothole backwards. Is that how you say that? Like divorce, right? I mean, I was wiped to zero. in terms of net worth. I mean, I ended up with debt. I had no house. I mean, it was just the freaking financial Armageddon, right? And I don't think my story is that unusual. How many people come out of divorce feeling fabulous about money? Actually nobody, I'm pretty sure, right? So, I had to use all my own skills to rebuild my life, including my stress levels around money, including, cash flow, including increasing my income. Yeah, and I did, but man, I don't ever want to be 39 again. Let me tell you that.
Right.
Mm.
So, you are in the financial industry, I'd say. Maybe you define that differently, but and I'd be curious about that. And you're working individually, like, mostly one-on-one, and seeing lots of transformations, sometimes for the better, sometimes maybe not. I don't know. Maybe people just don't want to change. I've never heard of that. But what do you like most and what do you dislike about the industry and the work that you do?
So I'm about to hop on a plane in a couple hours and go down to San Diego to the Financial Therapy Association conference.
Oh.
Right? I mean, it's interesting. So am I in the financial industry? Yes. But am I in the psychotherapeutic industry? Yes. Money coaching sits 50-50, halfway between the financial industry and the therapy industry, which is its own oddness, right? Because the field of financial coaching is less than 25 years old. So it's found its way. I mean, I'm kind of at the beginning of the field, so I've seen all craziness of the wild west of a new industry growing up. What I love the most is the shift that I see in people's lives. I mean, and like, you're right, Monica, people, they want to change. And when people come in, the most common thing they say is, I'm tired of feeling icky, out of control around money. I'm tired of being in a fog. I want to feel empowered. Like, is this possible? I'm sick of not feeling great about money. And, when you bring people through a process and help them rise above the money fog, right? There it is again. Insert the book title again. It People suddenly have better vision. They suddenly realize that they can entertain different ideas. They could change jobs or go back to school or have another baby or whatever it is, right? But when people are in a fog, their vision is very dim. So I would say that's what I love the most. What do I like the least? That's a harder question because I love, love, love what I do. I think it would be around the lines of the world of self-employment and coaching has changed. When I started as a coach 25 years ago, I was 100% in person. People would come to my office and we would do all sorts of interesting coaching. And so it's been an interesting transition to becoming 100% virtual. I had to, because I see people all over the United States, right? Seattle Money Coaches, because I live here, but I see people all over. And I miss the in-person. That's why I'm always curious about, like now I offer, yearly retreats for women around money, because I miss that in-person touch and connection that everybody loves. I mean, obviously I specialize in women and women love it, but that's kind of how I think I'd answer that one.
Okay, great. I think that we're about ready to wrap it up, aren't we, Dan?
We are.
Mikelann, it's been wonderful to get to know you and listen to some of your advice that you have. I know that I have written down half a sheet of notes just in our conversation right here of like, oh, I'm going to check that out. Oh, I want to talk to you about this. So be ready for me to ping you on LinkedIn or something. And speaking of LinkedIn, how might our listeners, if they wanted to get a hold of you, do that? In what way?
That's a fabulous question. So the easiest way is, well, I would love it if people are curious about working with me, just book a free discovery call. So if you go to Seattle Money Coach, you can literally click the button that says free discovery call. That's where you can buy the book on Amazon. You can buy the book anywhere. There's a free quiz I put on there to help people discern their level of money fog that they can download for free off the website. So everything is at Seattle Money Coach, and all my social media, business, Facebook and Instagram, etc., is all under Seattle Money Coach. And I'm all over LinkedIn as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Everyone, please make sure that you check out all of our replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle or wherever you get your podcast, whether it be iHeart, Apple, Google, SoundCloud, any of them. We are there. Like Dan said, we are ubiquitous. Please follow us on our show's social media page, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Mikelann, it was great to have you back again. So enjoyed the conversation. Thank you. And best wishes on not only your business and your continued business, but your tango dancing and many more shoes to come. So thank you for joining us.
It's so fun. Thank you guys for having me. It's such a fun show. I love all your podcasts. So thanks for having me back.
Thank you. Monica, great to see you again. I'm sure I'll see you before the next month is out in person, but we'll see you for the next show in a month. Everybody do exactly what Monica says. Like us on our Facebook page and Instagram and all of that. Our next show will be Wednesday, May 22nd. Michelle Baumberger will be my co-host. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.